welcome to our Creators Assemble Limelight interview. I'm Moni Barrett, co-founder and president of Creators Assemble, and this month we are excited to be spotlighting the Limelight artist Elke Ingrid. Hi Elke, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, Moni. How are you doing?
Pretty good. I'm going to read your bio here. So her art is going to be on display in our Limelight gallery at creatorsassemble.org. And a little bit about her. From a young age, Elke always had a fascination for art, whether it be from watching old Fleischer Brothers cartoons with her father to observing Art Nouveau, inspiring her love for ethereal themes in some of her illustrations. Art has been a constant in her life. As something that has always dwelled within her, she uses art to create diversified character concepts, to also explore the inner persona along through surreal self-portraits with themes of fantasy and sexuality. Elke feels at home with graphite and ink, enamored with the traditional art mediums, but continues to nurture a new place for digital art. So I just want to get right into the questions. Well, first of all, thank you for being here today. We're super excited as a team to have you as one of our as our Limelight artists for July, but also in our network. So thank you.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So I wanted to ask you, first of all, what is it about doing art that you find appealing? Like, why is that something that's your passion?
I think what's very appealing to me is probably over the years, as I started to observe more of the little details in the art styles from artists that I really look up to, is that you notice how in each style you can notice a trademark in it. For example, like some artists would focus more on the hairlines or some of the eyes that really pop out. And also certain artists where they focus more on the caricatures and also how some bodies contort, and maybe not in how humans can actually do it, but this is where art can really diversify and really just elasticize like all this different stuff. So it's probably just, I don't know, because it's so broad of a question, and I can elaborate further on what it is that I find it so appealing, but almost just about anything really that allows the artist to really express themselves.
So I wanted to ask then specifically, what do you focus on? What do you feel you focus on in your work?
As of late, I usually focus more on with character design, and I like to focus more on certain physical features that maybe I have not seen yet, from maybe like from popular comics or maybe some video games that I like to play. And I just kind of like to focus on that when it comes to creating characters. And let's see, what else? And also like intimacy and the dynamic in relationships between two different characters. And this is where I'm trying to at least create comics, which it's still a work in progress, but this is where I like to focus on most of the time.
Okay, thank you. So I've actually stalked your social medias a little bit in preparation for this and really enjoyed everything that I saw. And one thing that I did notice is that you actually are not afraid to post sort of where you started. Like you had a recent post where you from a few years ago, I think, and then you kind of showed a similar piece of art, but it was, you know, how you've evolved basically. So what kind of has influenced you first to start, and then kind of what has helped you evolve? Has it just been like practice or?
It's definitely a lot of practice. And I know there have been times in my life where whenever I hit an art block, that I just try and look at other people's artwork, which usually it helps and inspires you. But other times it kind of deters you in a way where it's like, I'm never going to be good enough. And so this is where, when I look back on some of my older drawings, I'm like, I do see the concept and where I'm going for, and I can definitely improve on what I'm actually going for. So that's where I like to post my older work along with my newer stuff to see how it flourishes from there, and actually just kind of boosts my confidence in a way as an artist.
It's fun to really watch your evolution happening there. Did you want to talk about, you put it in your bio and we'll be posting it on our
Mhm.
website as well, but did you want to talk about any of the artists that have inspired you and sort of why?
Sure. Let's see. As for one of the artists that has really influenced me in general, I think it's pronounced Alphonse Mucha or Mucha. Um, when I look back on some of the stuff from the early 1900s and late 1800s, some of the stuff that he has drawn of women that it's so beautiful, and how it just kind of inspires me to like really focus on improving with hair, but along with adding the fantasy element of how it always flows, even though the hair can't always flow in real life. But um,
Depends on how much
that's
product we use, right?
true. That's true. Or put on all that hairspray or gel.
There you go.
Yeah. Let's see what else. And I think also too, like I know with some of my earlier work, I was trying to at least grasp on like drawing the anatomy a little bit more realistically, even though kind of have like a hard time of doing it still. And so this is where I kind of focus more on with torsos or with arms and hands and whatnot.
That actually was going to be one of my questions later was, is there a part of the body that you find most difficult to draw, sort of like the old joke with Liefeld feet, you know?
Well, I mean, this is like with most artists because I notice how with most of them they usually draw like 3/4 busts, even though I'm very prone to doing that too. But when they usually do from like bust to mid torso, they sometimes want to try and hide the hands, even
Mm.
though it's like I mean, it can be a little bit tricky at times, but once you just keep on practicing or like using live models, it really helps in the long run. And even still, I'll still go back and look at some pictures. I'm like, okay, maybe I have to do this or that. So yeah.
Well, that was another question is, as someone myself who has no artistic talent in that way, especially showing, knowing that you're going to improve with more practice and time, is it hard to sort of like put yourself out there, and especially in the day of social media, like being able to share with the world kind of what you're working on and sort of just be like, gosh, I hope, or do you even care if anybody likes it, or are you kind of like putting it all out there? What is that like?
It's oh man, it definitely has a lot more pressure compared to having now social media so intertwined in our lives. Um, like I notice how in the art community they would sometimes have a trend on focusing on like drawing this in your own style from a different artist point of view, or maybe do these sort of things. But sometimes if it's not in the trend, you kind of have that pressure where it's like as an artist, well maybe I should, so that way I can also have my work be shown, and maybe it'll also go on the trend and be like, oh hey, someone actually saw my art. But that may not always be the case because sometimes it doesn't feel as genuine when you follow the trend, and then therefore doesn't make your art look as good. At least that was in my case whenever I try and do certain trends. um, like I know, let's see, last month I tried to follow this one trend called Misadventure May, which helped me explore a little bit more with my original characters, which it did. And there have been some pictures where it gained traction, and then others where not so much because it didn't feature as many characters that I usually draw. So I don't know. I think this is where I kind of noticed too, if you're drawing characters in general, it'll gain more popularity. And then other times, for maybe if you're just drawing backgrounds or practice a little bit with animals, maybe it's not as popular. But I guess it depends on the artist's style in the case. So this is what I've noticed, at least whenever I go through Instagram.
Huh. So say more about that if you'd like to. So you notice that characters for you get more attention, but a different style, you say, well, because I was thinking characters, at least for me, I feel drawn to, because especially if someone's kind of consistent in that style of art, then you sort of like start to relate, and obviously you can personify, you're a human, that's a human. What do you think, and I know this isn't maybe the case with you, but what do you find that would be of more attraction to a background or something non-human, I guess, that an artist could put out there?
Mm, I don't, that's a good question. I haven't gone as far into that, at least as of yet, but because I know I have one character that I am just constantly always changing, and
uh,
it's very heavily influenced by some of the Aztec mythology that I've been trying to look up on. But I don't know. I mean, probably by adding certain elements that make it stand out. I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to get back to you on that question because it's
it
like,
was random, I'm sorry.
no, I mean, it definitely made me think a bit more. And I'm just like, I'm not sure yet.
So is your family of German descent or?
Yes, so on my mom's side,
Okay, so do you
yeah,
speak German or?
yeah, originally, when I was growing up, I spoke a little bit of German, and then eventually I learned English. And
Gotcha.
now it just, being bilingual, you just kind of get your grammar mixed up with some of your day-to-day stuff. So
Hey.
I know, like, sometimes when ever I talk to my friend Melanie, who sometimes corrects my grammar, she's like, Elke, you just talk too literally sometimes. So that's just, it's a bad habit, but I can't help it.
Hey, it's a good problem to have to be bilingual. So have you found that your heritage has influenced your art at all or?
um, Probably more to do with probably whenever I'm creating characters for their clothing. Like, I know as of maybe a few months ago when I was creating this one sweater that was supposed to represent a dirndl, which is, I don't know if you've heard of that word. It's kind of like the feminine equivalent of a lederhosen. If
Okay.
But if you look it up, then you're like, oh, hey, I know what she means by that. It's People hardly hear the word dirndl because usually people like to point out, oh, later, I don't know.
Gotcha.
So I think it's just more of like what America usually sees from like over, I guess, with German culture. I don't know. So this is where it's like, um, I don't know.
Kind of sneaks in there sometimes, huh? Like kind of just you don't feel like, oh, I'm definitely gonna do something influenced by it, but it kind of happens, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What do you face any struggles basically wanting to kind of be creative and be an artist and also having to maintain like a day job and pay the bills? Is that a hard balance or is it just
It, I mean, there are some moments where it can be a little bit tough at times, because while I do work at the library part-time, and then on the other side, I do help out with my grandmother, um, it can be a little bit tough.
Mhm.
But then there are other moments too where it's like, okay, I'll still give myself that little extra free time to really focus on these drawings that I had in mind, like maybe at least a good 2 to 3 hours, if most 3 hours, but if not, then I'll just try and at least give it a try.
That's really inspiring though. I mean, the fact that you can have a stressful, work day or a work day like we all do, and then come home and still find it in you to put 3 hours into something that you're passionate about. That's really neat.
Definitely. I mean, this is where art in its own is very cathartic for me.
Okay. That was going to be my next question is kind of what drives you to keep going, but I guess that's kind of
It's like it's almost as if some of the questions I already answered on its
Oh no,
own.
no worries. That's an organic conversation for you. So
Mm.
you mentioned being into comics. Is there a mainstream comic character, or if there's nobody in comics, then was there a mainstream character of some sort that you would love to have the opportunity to draw?
Mm. That's a good question. Because I know
Or
I
someone
have
you'd like to reimagine, like a mashup or something?
Oh yeah. I know there's plenty of like maybe cartoons that came out like during like the mid 2000s, and then eventually they also had like comics on the side. Um, man, I'm just trying to think like which ones I would do though. I haven't read too many of them, but I would definitely like to try some of the Archie comics
Ooh, okay.
or other ones. I guess that's one. I
Okay.
can't really I can't really think of any at the
On the
time being.
spot, you know.
Yeah.
Pop quiz.
Yeah. Yeah.
I actually I was scrolling through your art and I came across the Betty Boop that you did, which
Mhm.
was one of my favorites growing up. And my daughter had never seen Betty Boop before. And it was kind of one of those things where it's like not in my purview lately. And also I was like, Betty Boop. So I had my daughter watching them and I didn't realize like how kind of dark and kind of racist or kind of how the tone now is a little bit kind of really
It
dark at best.
it's funny because most of the time Betty Boop, she is very risque, but she is also like she's very open with her sexuality.
She's amazing, but the world that she's in and some of the older cartoons is just like cringe. I didn't even think about it when I was little, you know.
Yeah. No, I mean it's funny to revisit some of the older cartoons. Definitely how like some of it is it's okay, you can still watch them, but most of them though at that time because of its own culture, it's like, ugh, this isn't exactly right, and this
Yeah.
actually shows the characters in a very bad stereotypical way.
Yes. Yes. I was like, oh, Betty Boop was always cute when I was growing up. And I put it
Yeah.
on whatever I found on YouTube, which wasn't some of the kind of more modern stuff. And so it definitely was like, my daughter was like, I love this. Like, what are we watching right now? Let's not.
Right.
Do you have an actor or an actress that you think would be fun to draw?
Let's see, probably Anne Hathaway or I'm trying to think of who else. There's this one character of mine whose name is Liam that is his face was kind of inspired by Adam Driver.
Okay.
So one of those two, so either Anne Hathaway or Adam Driver. There's still plenty of like other actors that may not come to mind, but it's just there's like so much to work with here.
You should create a mashup of one as the other, like Anne Hathaway as Adam Driver.
Oh my God, that's crazy. I love that.
Then it's your own. See, trademark here. Nobody else can steal this, okay? This is here.
Do not steal.
So what other passions do you have outside of art? I've seen some of like your outfit of the day. Are you into fashion? What kind of other things do you like?
It's funny. I think fashion that's kind of become more of a thing like a lot later in life that I really gotten into, which I never would have thought of, but definitely has. And also it inspires me to at least go out and above to imagine what sort of wardrobe one of my characters would have in mind. Like,
Oh,
would this person be a goth or would this one actually be into more pastels? Um, Now, going to other hobbies, not so much. I mean, I definitely like to watch some video essays on like either video games or movies. Um, I do like to read comics and stuff, and I also like to learn more about history. I'm just trying to think what else that I have in mind that maybe I have not mentioned. I don't know. I can't really think of it at this time.
is there anything that you're reading in particular that you wanted to share?
Well, I have been rereading. I always keep on mispronouncing her name. Tove Tove Jansson. I don't know if she's Swedish, but she's the creator for the Moomins. So this is like something that's pretty popular over in Europe. But I actually just checked it out from the library that I worked at, and I thought, oh my gosh, can't believe this is at this library. And so,
That's
and
cool.
this comic is actually really old. I mean, it came out during the 40s and 50s. So it was really interesting to read some of this stuff. And
Yeah.
I actually watched some of the cartoons first before I read this.
Mm.
So I don't know, it was really interesting to revisit some of the stuff that maybe I grew up with as a child.
That is cool. And then kudos to your library for getting a hold of something like that. You know how hard that is to get comics A and then to get, stuff that's
Yeah,
not so mainstream. So
I know. It's funny because sometimes when you go to the library, it's like, okay, I've seen this over at the bookstore, and then occasionally you'll stumble upon this one gem that you're like, huh, I never would have expected this.
it's probably something
Yeah,
that some librarian bought a long time ago and didn't realize what it was.
yeah, probably.
Found new life in the comics era of now. So there you go.
Hmm.
If I could ask the most kind of like self boosting question as far as our organization, could I ask you what drew you to be involved with the Creators Assemble network?
Originally, Elias told me about it,
Mhm.
and I was like, okay, maybe I'll look up more on this. And honestly, I just thought for people to just like help and try and show others of artists and other creators that have not been as well known, like, and try to promote some stuff on their own, it just really is inspiring and just really it it's something that I also wanted to be a part of because like um even just like with the amount of people that do follow my work and I do appreciate it, I still like to post on stories like other artists that inspire me, or if I find some of their work really interesting and I want to try and post as many stuff as I can on my story because it it kind of just makes me mad because it's like here are these really incredible artists that people have not recognized or at least found out about yet. So it's I don't know. It just it's something that I want to be a part of where I help other people also show their art, whereas I'd like to at least let other people see my art in this case.
Sure. You're in a good community for that because that's, it's about sharing all of you. So is
Mm.
there anything overall that you want to say about yourself? Anything that you want the world to know about you, or anything you'd like to be remembered for? My husband always writes these lofty questions. Is there anything in the world that you'd like to be remembered for? It's like your eulogy, but let's not go that
a,
dark.
a eulogy like 50 years ahead of time from then
Yeah.
on. um, not exactly sure. I think maybe for the most part, for people to say these are some illustrations that really resonated with them emotionally and maybe something that they can connect with like with any other artist that they hope for their illustration that they've created. um yeah, I can't think of anything else for the time being, but that's yeah, that's about it.
Sounds good to me. So did you want to tell people how they can find you on social media or online besides Creators Assemble?
Yeah, so you can check out on my Instagram and Facebook by my username at elkeline.art. And then you can also check out my Twitter, which is elkeline_art.
Perfect. And are you also available for commissions or other projects should someone want to find you for that?
I am. So you can email me, which I actually have, I guess, on one of my links, but either by email or actually just sending me a private message.
Fabulous. Okay. Well, thank you for your time today. This was a great talk. I think you're
Yes,
going to
thank you.
inspire a lot of others. So if you would like to be in the Creators Assemble Limelight, or just looking for a helping hand in the creative world, then go find us and find out more at creatorsassemble.org. You can visit our galleries and find other new creators like Elke, and also learn about upcoming events and some of our literacy initiatives we're doing for curriculum in comics. So thank you.